All right, so this was a little bit of a clickbait title, but the whole goal of this video is to show you the 4 skills to how to become a profitable crypto trader fast. And this is the truth. If you learn these skills, you will be able to skip the learning curve big time because most traders are focusing on all of the wrong things and they just go into what we call execution mode as quickly as possible. And execution mode is the most dangerous thing if you don't build these 4 core skills up. So essentially, you can think of the way as we dive into this, you can think of this as going into any endeavor unprepared. Think about it as maybe you're playing a video game, you're about to jump in and fight the final boss, but you didn't build your stats whatsoever. You didn't build up your attack, your defense, your stamina. You're just going in there naked, basically. And that's what most traders are doing, is they do not have the right stats built up, really, to become successful at going into that trading dungeon and executing those trades. So let's dive in and talk about what this full stat blueprint is so that you can streamline your trading success in a much quicker way than I did personally, because I was that person going into the battle naked and just wondering why I was getting owned. But if you actually just treat this like a video game and actually upgrade your stats and come into the battlefield prepared, where you do have full attack, you have defense, you have everything you need to be a proper trader, you're going to actually win this battle. So let's go and dive in and talk about this. So what we have here is a little gradient that I'm going to call the core 4 trader stats, and you're going to want to understand these. Now, these are not going to be exciting, but the key exciting piece is that once you have maximized these stats, that is what's going to allow you to actually win your battles in trading instead of losing them. So let's talk about the first one here, and we'll go one by one. So your first stat that you have to work on here is risk management. And let's talk about what exactly that means. People hear risk management all the time, and they really have no idea what we're even talking about. But the reason why this is the first one is because this is in sequential order. Another thing that traders do that screws them over is they're doing things out of order, right? If you don't maximize your risk management skills first, you really are not going to have success right away. If you don't have risk management, you're going to get blown up all the time. That's basically like, if you don't have that, it's like walking without, another leg. You're just going to fall over. So risk management is your first stat you need to work on. And this is actually a stat that is pretty easy to develop, but I'm going to talk about the basics here so that you can at least get started. And I'll make videos on exactly how to do each one of these as we go along. But we'll start off with risk management. What is this? Think about this as like your core defense. So if you do not have defense, if you're just coming into a battle with no armor, one hit, one losing trade, you're done for. It's going to be a kill shot. So what risk management is your armor. So what you're going to learn how to do is how to actually size each position that you put on to where if you do take a loss, it's going to be no big deal. You go into battle, you take your first hit, it's an arrow, it just glances off your armor. That's how you want to think about coming into trades, is where if you lose a trade, if you take a hit, it's just a glance. It's not a critical strike. And most people, when they get into this game, any single hit that they take, most people can't even lose 1 trade or 3 trades. They're out after that. What you want to be able to do is handle a barrage of attacks and be unfazed. So you really want to get familiar with this risk management practice so that you can come in as a tank when it comes to trading, where you can take all these attacks and still stand to where you can actually make it further down the line to actually win some solid trades rather than getting blown up with maybe even some poor positions. So what is risk management? So let's talk about each one. Let's talk about your sizing here. So how big of a position can you actually put on? A lot of people just put on their full entire account and wonder why they're just getting annihilated. Because, if you put on your entire account and your trade just goes 20% against you, which is not unlikely in the crypto space, in just a few days, now you have a fifth of your account missing. How many of those can you take before you're basically at pennies? Not many. So you have to size your position based on, you have to size your position based on your stop loss. That's the critical piece is when you actually understand where you're going to cut your losses, you can put on a size to where if your position actually touches your stop loss, you will only lose a specific amount that you're okay with losing. And the key piece of this is discipline. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of this stuff in the next skills, but you have to have discipline to actually execute this over and over again. And the whole objective is actually protecting your capital. It's like your health bar in a video game. You have to protect your stats in your HP basically, so that you aren't going to actually lose and fail the game. And that's if you blow your account. So that's number one. You need to study and maximize risk management first. There's plenty of books on this topic. You can Google this stuff. Also, in my community, I talk about a lot of this stuff as well. It's completely free. If you want to join, just go ahead and check out my bio. Number two, market structure. So after you have risk management down, which is like the thing that people do after they've blown up and lost the game like 4 or 5 times, you can actually cut that learning curve and literally save yourself years if you start with this risk management and then move to the thing that most people start with right away, which is your market structure and your technicals. So what is market structure? What is technicals? So really easy here. It's reading trends, support and resistance, and this is your basic technical analysis. Yes, there's indicators as well. But essentially what technical analysis is going to give you, it's going to let you know the environment that you're walking into. So it's like you're playing a video game. If you don't know really what the lay of the land is, you're not going to be very good at that level or good at that environment. So you need to understand what environment that you're going into when it comes to taking a trade or putting on an investment position. So what does it look like? Is the trend in your favor? Is the trend against you? It's like saying, I don't know. It's like you're prepared for a water level, but you're in fire gear. It's just not going to work correctly. So a lot of people, they're going to take positions in markets that are against them all the time. There's even professional crypto hedge fund managers. They're taking positions in markets that have been trending downwards for months. What that's going to do is basically put you into a position where the wind is into your sails to the opposite direction. You really want the wind in the direction at where you are going, in the direction of the position that you are taking. So if you're going long, you want the trend to be an uptrend. If you're going short, you want the trend to be potentially a downtrend, right? And again, there's plenty of books on this, but what you want to do is strengthen your understanding of what the price is doing overall. And this is in any single business endeavor. So people think that trends is just something that you learn in trading. No, it's in every business model. If you start a business and you're starting a business in something that's no longer trending, I don't know, think of like Beanie Babies or Furbies, or maybe it might be a good time that this comes back, but it's going to be high risk, right? If you say, I'm going to create Furbies again, or I'm going to create Beanie Babies again, or the next Furby or the next Beanie Baby, that trend has been long over. So it's going to be risky to start that sort of business model. Or if you knew that the trend for these things or the prices of Beanie Babies or Furbies are going down, that's probably not a good idea to start a business if the prices are going down for these things. And to the opposite, say things are getting popular, like Pokemon cards. They seem to just be getting more and more popular in the market. They've actually been outperforming the S&P 500. So if you understand the trend of the business model, if you start a business in that trend where the wind is at your back, that is going to be something that's going to actually help you. So understanding the market structure and where the market is trending is critical in the crypto markets. There's plenty of books on this as well. Also, I can help you inside my community on learning the trends, and I'll make more videos on technicals. So number 3, let's talk about this piece. And this is really a piece where people just don't get it until they absolutely understand that this is a psychological game. So we're going to talk about execution and psychology. So what you really need to do after you've studied your risk management, after you understand your technicals, is now the execution side and really understanding that it is a psychological game. Because just pulling the trigger seems easy, but you've probably noticed this. Once you actually put on a position, everything changes. Your mind gets clouded. You don't know what to do. If the market starts going against you, do you close that position? Do you hold on? If the market starts running, do you take profit? Or do you not? Or do you still hang on? These are all psychological things that you need to do to keep yourself safe in this game. And the market is extremely psychological. That's the whole reason why you see prices go astronomical and also crash to the floor. It's because of this extreme fear or extreme greed. But you have to understand really how to deal with these psychological factors. You have to understand, is fear a good emotion or a bad emotion? Is greed a good emotion or a bad emotion for your strategy? And most often, the emotions that we are taught that are good are bad in the markets. Because when the market is very greedy, when people are saying, are hyping up a certain coin, that's typically the worst time to get into a project, is when people are hyping it up. Because why else would anybody be hyping up a project unless that they either got in early or they've made money, right? Or they have some sort of vested interest. So they have biased opinions. And a lot of us are taught if something's exciting, we should be in the market. When in reality, the best trades are often after people are not excited. They don't want to touch it. They're actually disgusted. You know, how many people have been disgusted with Bitcoin? Right? That is like the most disgusting project out of all the projects. So many critics of Bitcoin, yet Bitcoin keeps climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing. There's not much euphoria around Bitcoin these days, and that's why it keeps going up. But once you do see that euphoria come into Bitcoin, likely it is actually the top. Just like we saw with NFTs, there was super excitement for NFTs. People were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for NFT land spaces next to Snoop Dogg, and a lot of these are going for dollars now instead of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you have to study the market. You have to study the psychology of the market. Really, where are the people making the most money in this market? Are they getting in when there's a lot of hype, or are they getting in when the market is cooled off and maybe they're even disgusted with those projects? You need to start studying Twitter trends. You have to start studying the emotions. You have to start studying prices after emotions have happened. When do things crash? Recently, these Labubus, people were getting into Labubus. Labubus were super exciting. There were lines out the doors. Any astute investor would know that that is the end of the market for Labubus. And guess what? These markets have been crashing over and over now because that was the top. Where people made money was when the excitement was not there. Okay, last one here is number 4. This is the thing that people get into immediately, but really you need to have risk management. You need to have market structure and technicals. You need to have your execution psychology down before you get into this last one. And this is really where you sharpen your edge. And this is your narratives and your catalysts. So what a narrative is essentially what the newest trend is. And this is where it goes a little bit more advanced than the psychology, because a narrative, finding a narrative correctly and finding a catalyst correctly is before the hype. This is where you're actually going to understand the news and understand these narratives and on-chain flows, where you can see where smart money is starting to create their positions, where things are starting to get hot, where they're not actually hot and overheated. So for example, we've seen narratives in crypto all the time. There's meme coin narratives, there's AI narratives, there's right now it's perpetual derivative exchange narratives with Aster and Hyperliquid. And the astute investors understand when these narratives are starting to get hot. The newbies, they get in after the market is on fire. So they get in after people are shouting from the rooftops how much money that they've made we just talked about this, in AI, in perpetual derivatives exchanges, and then it's too late. But once you actually learn how to find these narratives and actually track whale wallets and actually understand Twitter trends and seeing the right people who are often early to these narratives, to where you can actually start to get in early, then get in later. You can look at things like coinmarketcap.com, start to look at what's trending. You're looking at the different categories and seeing what's trending and starting to trend, not what's already trending. So all these together are really what changes the game in crypto trading. Most of us have no structure whatsoever and don't understand what stats that you actually have to build when it comes to being successful in this space. So what I want you to do is take these 4 core trader stats and start to work on them one at a time. Master risk management, then move to mastering your market structure and technicals, then move to execution and psychology, and then start to build that final sharpening the blade and understanding early narratives. So I hope that helps. I'll be breaking these down in further videos. Let me know any questions you have in the comments, and I'll see you guys on the next video.